That's right. I'm pulling double duty today because the Chiefs have gone into overdrive with three signings. Now we're going to be talking about where they invested the most money today in Kenneth Walker, addressing the largest need on the team at running back. Was it worth it? Is this a signing that's going to pan out? Did the Chiefs pay too much? Well, how does it compare to other running back contracts? And how does it affect the Chiefs' strategy going forward? We're going to discuss all that and more today on Chiefs Coast Bias. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Chiefs Coast Bias with me, Malgore. Chiefs were super busy today with three signings to open up free agency, including the marquee running back, an area that we all knew the Chiefs were going to target after their abysmal rushing performance last week. Don't need to belabor that point, covered it in depth on another video, but they came out signing Kenneth Walker, Super Bowl MVP, formerly of the Seattle Seahawks. Now he will be moving to the Midwest to take up residence in Kansas City. First article says the deal is for 3 years and up to $45 million. We later found out that it's closer to $43 million and some of it's incentive based, with $28.7 million guaranteed. He had 1,027 rushing yards and 5 touchdowns during the 2025 regular season, and we also know the Chiefs were somewhat abysmal, ranking 25th in rushing yards, with 30-year-old Kareem Hunt leading the team. We know the Chiefs had a pretty efficient rushing offense in terms of EPA, but that was mostly due to Kareem Hunt in those short yardage situations on 3rd and 4th down, and as one commenter pointed out to me, also probably had a lot to do with Mahomes because he was running a lot more in the season early and often in order to keep drives alive, which can juice up that EPA metric. But when it came to explosive plays, they just weren't there from Kansas City. Second article, I believe, from The Athletic, saying Walker gives the Chiefs what they've desperately needed from their running game: big playability. Walker had 10 20-plus yard runs last season, while the entire Chiefs running back room combined for only 1. And we remember this quote from Andy Reid: somewhere you'd like to have a few bigger plays in that area, not 3 to 4 yards. Every once in a while, you need to hit on a few. And we know that the Chiefs want to go deep with the ball, and the running game was just not helping. No matter how much we tried the short and intermediate game, it didn't really matter. We could not get the secondary to creep up to give Mahomes those deep shot opportunities. Running linebackers and safeties were not falling for run-pass options because run was no threat. They weren't falling for play action. They were willing to give up 3.5 yards a carry because they knew that they just needed to limit explosive plays from the run and pass game, which has been the MO of defenses against Mahomes for a while now. It goes on to say that the Chiefs still need to add more to the position this offseason. Second-year player Brashard Smith is more of a running back receiver hybrid, while Isaiah Pacheco and Kareem Hunt are pending free agents. I think there's a chance we see Hunt back, and I think the larger point is more important. The Chiefs aren't done at running back. They're not going to just rest on Kenneth Walker, but this is going to be the only marquee signing. With all of the fifth-round picks that the Chiefs have in the draft, I anticipate that is a likely area for them to target, or they'll be packaging some of those picks to move up and take a running back in the 3rd or 4th round. This pretty much takes Jeremiah Love off the board, as he would be another $8 million guaranteed contract, which would mean the Chiefs are putting in almost $20 million at running back. That is not happening. You saw my previous video on why I didn't think it was worth it to sign Love because of something like this. Regardless of what you think about the Walker contract, it is done and dusted. It will become official on the first day of the league year here in a couple of days, but it certainly means that Jeremiah Love is no longer an option for the Chiefs. We may see another low-tier running back in free agency, but I think it's more likely we see something from the draft. Maybe bring back Kareem Hunt on a veteran minimum deal as a short yardage back, draft a player. Then you've got 4 running backs in the room that you can have them compete, duke it out, and finalize your depth for the start of the 26 season, with maybe the 4th one going to the practice squad. Certainly a lot of options still there for Kansas City, but now we know it is not a gaping hole of need for the Chiefs anymore because they have signed that sort of marquee player in free agency. We know that the Chiefs desperately need explosive runs. Here's the chart that I've shown you before: 20 and 40 plus yard runs. The Chiefs were 32nd in the NFL last year with Only 3 20-plus yard runs, which is weird because the article we read said that the entire running back room only had one. I think that means that the other two were from Sir Patrick Mahomes, and there was only 0 40-plus yard runs. So Kenneth Walker is clearly helping the Chiefs in an area of need, and like I said, the main purpose of it is going to be to reopen up the middle of the field. I've shown you some pass charts from Rashee Rice particularly, still going to be the Chiefs' #1 receiver as of now in the 26th season, and almost all of his work comes short, intermediate, middle of the field. Anytime it's on the outside, he is usually catching the ball at or behind the line of scrimmage. The Chiefs need to open things up as much as they can. The running game is one way to do that. It can open up the deep ball. It can allow them to do a change of pace where they can be varied in their approach based on what the defense is doing, and it forces the defense to make hard choices, and that's usually when a defense is going to make mistakes. So I do think that this can open a lot of things up with the play action game, give Rashee Rice more opportunities in the short, intermediate, over the middle of the field, which is a good thing for Kansas City. When we see Kenneth Walker's career stats, they are not eye-popping, but it is a player who has been somewhat consistent and who had a great run last season. I do think his contract is pretty overvalued to an extent just because of the playoff run. Whenever you see a player make big plays in the Super Bowl and they're about to be a free agent, that usually means they're going to get paid. I can't remember that Joker's name, but who was that Cowboys secondary player back in the 90s who had those interceptions in the Super Bowl and he got paid just off of that game? Wish I could remember it, but my brain is old and decaying, so it's just not coming to me. Point being that Kenneth Walker is making his money off of a limited series of games, but that doesn't mean that he wasn't also a productive player in the regular season, especially with the explosive run stats I gave you before. Why did Chiefs sign Kenneth Walker and what's next? This is from Nate Taylor and company over at ESPN. This is a little brutal. They're giving it a C+. I think most Chiefs fans would probably say it's a little higher than that, even if you don't think it's an A. The Chiefs gain explosive upside on every run that they simply did not have last year. Walker had the 6th most runs of 10-plus yards last season, which is where he shines. And of course, his play in the postseason raised his value quite a bit, something I just discussed. He recorded 39 rush yards over expected and generated 0 first downs over expected per NFL stats, but in the playoffs, he recorded 79 rush yards over expected and 8 first downs over expected. So you are getting a little bit of that premium just because of the late season performance, but that's not really what the Chiefs were looking for. Think back to the video that I made on Jeremiah Love. We had the worst starting running back in the NFL last season, bar none. Isaiah Pacheco was 32 with a bullet. No threat of a long run, no consistency, bad vision and hesitation, wasn't really a person who could make a lot of cuts behind the line of scrimmage and find the correct hole. We don't need Kenneth Walker to be a top 10 running back in the NFL. In fact, I would gladly just take 1,000 yards from Kenneth Walker if it means that the way those 1,000 yards are achieved is through relatively consistent production of 10 and 20-plus yard runs, because we know this is a pass-first team. The lowest amount they've ever passed in a season is 58.6% of the time. Walker is someone who can be efficient because he's not going to get a lot of touches, but when he does, he's a threat to go long, and that is going to open up the rest of the offense. Let's talk a little bit about contract speculation for Kenneth Walker. The total value without incentives is $43 million. The 45 is if he achieves some milestones. No word yet on what those are, but we do know that the guarantees in the contract are $28.7 million. This is just a guesstimation, or really not even that. It's more of an example of what his contract could look like in terms of cap hit. We know that the $28.7 million is most likely going to be prorated. Most information that I get on this says that it needs to be prorated. That doesn't mean that it has to be completely equal every year. You could front load, but I believe proration is somewhat of a minimum. Little murky on that. If you have countering information on the way that they can structure a guarantee, I'd love to read up more on it. I'm just going off the best information available from what the NFLPA has published regarding the labor deal and salary cap. So that would mean it's $9.56 million guaranteed, prorated over 3 years, and you have a veteran minimum salary of 2026 for a player with his number of accrued seasons is $1.215 million. This means his cap hit from 2026 should be relatively set in stone. Again, assuming the information that the NFLPA has published on this is accurate, and that would be a $10.775 million cap hit for 2026. That's a little under half of the cap space that the Chiefs had available, and you see that number goes up the next two seasons. I have it equal in terms of the remaining salary, how it's spaced between 2027 and 2028, but we know we have that minimum guaranteed of $9.56 million that's going to be the cap hit, and you have to get the remainder of that salary out. So you take 28.7 out of the $43 million. That's going to give you the remainder of what he's owed, which is essentially going to be his base salary. It could be structured in roster bonuses or something like that. Bottom line, though, is that is what's going to hit the cap if he's on the roster. So regardless of what category it's in, we're just more concerned with what's the ultimate cap number going to be. So if he has that 6.58 in both, and there's a good chance it's not like that, you will oftentimes see that the middle of the year can either be lower to make the back end even higher, or sometimes it will even be ballooned in the middle so that in the third year of the contract it's a lot lower. It's really all about what Brett Veach and his advisors are telling him the Chiefs need to do to set them up. If you look at the video I did on Travis Kelce, I've already talked about how for 2027 the Chiefs are sitting really well. In fact, if you go back and look at that chart where I said they could have over $120 million in cap with 4 cuts, none of that even included the Patrick Mahomes restructure, which can add a crap ton more money freed up for the Kansas City Chiefs. So I am not really worried about that really in the short term. In fact, I would actually like to see them maybe have a ballooning payment in 27 so that 28, when you're racking up more and more, you got a little bit more flexibility, but it doesn't really matter. And we know that the cap is going up. So $16.4 million. Like I said, that's going to be the average over the last 2 years. They can kind of split that up in different ways. When we look at current running back contracts, let's take the first year, which is going to be a little over $10 million. You see where he's ranked there, kind of in that Aaron Jones area. That's reasonable to me, and it keeps Chiefs off that top of market where we're sitting around $20 million. Even when you have the backloaded, let's go again, on the last 2 years, that's 16.4. Even that, it's going to put him in the top 5, but it's not egregious. You're not paying him like the best running back. And with the re-examination of the running back position, we do have to assume a trajectory where running back contracts are going to continue to increase. We did see that Etienne today signed a big deal. I want to say it was 12 or 13 million per season for a 4 or 5 year deal. I can't remember which. So we are seeing those contracts continue to come out. So I think when we revisit this in a couple of years, it may not look good because he doesn't produce, but that would all be hindsight. We can say that the value that he was given is just sort of the price of doing business. I do have a couple of caveats there, though, that I do have some hesitation. I think C+ is a little unfair, but it is hard for me to say that this is a home run hit. I love that they addressed the need. I love that they went out and invested. Brett Veach, you're doing pretty good, man. You're doing pretty good, because I remember some sage advice from one of my favorite figures in the NFL, and I remember exactly what he said.
Yeah, when it's grim, be the grim reaper and go get it.
And I think Brett Veach took that advice to heart, and that's exactly what he's doing right now in the offseason. I did see that Algier, when we look at some of the free agent running backs, was way cheaper on a 2-year deal. He doesn't have as much proven production. He did have one proven season. I believe it was his rookie year. So it maybe not as much of a guarantee, not as much of an explosive runner, but I do think there was some production there. But it seems like the Chiefs' strategy was that they wanted to get someone that they thought had a very high ceiling in terms of the explosive runs, and they didn't want to spend draft capital on a player like Love, which indicates to me that the Chiefs, because we haven't seen anything on the edge yet, that is clearly a place they are targeting. I think that's another take that we can have from this signing, that edge rusher is going to remain a priority at the top of the first round. And I'm starting to wonder, is Jeremiah Love going to slide? Look at the teams picking in the top 10. We know that the Raiders already have a running back they just drafted last year. The Jets franchise tag Breece Hall. The Cardinals restructured Connor and made a signing today. And we know that the Chiefs did as well. So we're seeing, and the Saints too. So we've got 5 of the teams drafting in the top 10 that have made investments in running back that would indicate they are not looking to take Love. Could Love fall? Could Love fall to 9 and allow the Chiefs to move back even just 1 or 2 picks to pick up another top 100 slot? Probably not, because I think if someone moves up for Love, it's going to be above 9, but it is in the realm of possibility. Regardless, the investment to me says edge rusher is still going to be the primary area of focus for the Kansas City Chiefs at the top of the draft. The other one I would still like to see is wide receiver, because we saw no movement there. Overall thoughts on the Walker pick. I don't hate it. I'm not totally in love with it. I love the aggressiveness. I love that it's only 3 years. It's hard to seriously hamper your team with a 3-year contract, especially one that even at the top of it is probably only going to be around a $16 million cap hit. And if we go back, let's just assume the sort of averages that I laid out. Even if the Chiefs wanted to get out of this deal a year from now, they would still save some money off the cap. It wouldn't be a total, they're not completely stuck with them where it's going to cost more to cut them than to keep them. At least they can structure it that way. Again, we don't have final details yet. So it looks good to me from that perspective. And I like that they targeted not only a marquee player, but someone who is specifically geared to do the thing they want. Now, this might worry some Chiefs. This is going to be my final take before we wrap it up. We're not seeing a fundamental shift toward the running game. I've seen that take from some fans and from articles that the Chiefs, that this is a sign that we're going to reemphasize the running game. I don't think that at all. I think the Chiefs are still going to be passing about 58 to 62% of the time. I think that they're doing what I talked about in the last video, which is they've recognized that they don't need the best running back in the NFL. They just need to not have the worst. To me, the Chiefs are totally fine with this contract if it means Kenneth Walker ends up being the 14th best running back in the NFL, as long as the production that he gets includes the long runs. It has to include the long runs. If he's grinding it out to be the 14th best running back, where he's just barely getting the 4 yards and never hitting something over 10 or 20 yards, then I think we can say it was probably a bad move from the Chiefs. But this does not signal any sort of orientation towards focusing more on the run for the Kansas City Chiefs. To me, it is getting back to the way that they were running the ball when they succeeded, which is they were never anywhere near the top of the league in rushing yards. They were never anywhere near the top of the league in terms of percentage of the time that they ran the ball. They were just looking for a sprinkling, if you will, just a little smattering. Because you got to remember, with Patrick Mahomes, you're making a nice little stew, right? It's not just a one. He's a chef, and you got to give him different ingredients. You can't just be going all in with the salt. You can't just have the cilantro. There's too much cilantro. You can't have all that. You need to vary it up a little bit, and giving Mahomes that little sprinkle, that little dabble, that hint of cinnamon when you're sitting down at the end of a cold day and you're warming up with a Mahomes cooked meal, you want to have a little sprinkle of that explosion in there. And I really think that's what they're doing here. But I'd love to hear what you think about the signing. Again, don't love it, don't hate it. What do you think? Is this such a contract that's going to hamper the Chiefs going forward? Is it going to end up being a disappointment? Or here's what I'd really love to hear. What do you think it takes for us to consider this a successful signing? Not the wins and losses for the team, but what does the player have to produce in order for this to work? Be sure to like, subscribe, comment. I'd love it. I'm just out here trying to elevate Chiefs discourse, get my friends and more people being able to talk about the Chiefs, talking about this great dynasty, this team that everyone is sleeping on. We're all bracing ourselves for the smattering of articles about how this is the Broncos division, this is the Chargers division. I think Brett Veach has shown today that you can't count the Chiefs out at all. They are not coming back to do the same thing again. They may have similar strategies, but they're certainly going to do it with new players and a new core. So many picks in the draft. Such an exciting time to be a Chiefs fan. That's all I got on Kenneth Walker. I'll try to do a deeper dive later on in the offseason. But until then, this is Chiefs Ghost Bias. I am Mal Gore, and you have a fan-flippin-tastic day.